boldness. Yeah, definitely think e-commerce is a huge area, allowing Africans to buy products they couldn't otherwise access easily, particularly without having to build huge malls and kind of leapfrogging retail. Financial services is also a big area. FinTech, anything around telemedicine, because access to doctors is really hard in Africa.
What everybody hears is you raise the 100 million. They say, yeah, but that's not success. Success is lasting long enough till you can exit, either through an acquisition or an IPO, and the money that the investors get in becomes liquid and fungible. So a lot of businesses I've seen don't make it out of the exit, and that means everybody gets washed out. You just spend 7-8 years of your life working on this thing that didn't pan out.
The 5 or 6 most valuable companies on the stock exchange are technology companies that were once venture-backed. So it's a compelling story about how people that invest in high-risk ventures are able to move a society forward because they were willing to make the investment when those ventures looked silly. And one thinks maybe this could happen in Africa.
We belong to the school of thought that that believes very firmly that Africa's future will be built on the back of entrepreneurs. We are firmly rooted in bridging those knowledge gaps and making the interconnectedness between Africa and the rest of the world comes in forms of capital, in forms of education and resources, and mostly it's built in Africa, for Africa, and scaled in Africa. It could become a unicorn by going beyond Africa, but made in Africa, scaled in Africa, so multiple African markets. And that's really what distinguishes us as African.
So the first piece of code I wrote was my freshman year in college. I was like 16. I took Java, and it was a program to animate some radio, and I was able to code it, and I'm like, oh wait, it works. I just wrote code. I typed stuff, and I ran it, and it worked. I got thrown into mobile app development towards 2010, where I created an app that went viral in Nigeria. Initially, it just started off as just radio and nothing else. So I said, what about news? What about gossip news, entertainment, sports, health news? And I was like, okay, we can make this a little more social. What about having people interact on the app?
I'd always been into tech. Growing up, I was like the tech person within our family. People would always look to me. So I'd always been interested in it, but I never considered it as a real career path because I didn't have someone that I could point to that was in that industry. Everyone I knew was, sort of outside of tech.
I started to look at the internet as this space where it didn't matter who you were, but you were able to reach the most amount of people.
Hey, good to meet you. I'm Mark.
Mark Zuckerberg was my earliest influence. I've continued to be influenced by his approach to tech because it's a perfect mix of social mission, right? Economic impact. It's not about building a big company, and neither is it about being an NGO and giving everything away. It's about building a system.
Introducing Mall for Africa,
So let's say you are in a rural town in Nigeria. Download the app on your preferred device. Find the product from the cart. We put it in our environment, and now we allow you to select where you want to have purchased it from. It's shipped to our warehouse. Then we tag it, and then we ship it out to you, taking care of all customs, duties, fees, and making sure everything goes perfectly right.
When I turned 25, kind of just reviewing the 5 years, I kind of settled on this. It's platforms and it's policy.
Andela is a platform for tech-powered growth.
The future will be written in Lagos,
Nairobi,
and cities across Africa.
And that was what we did at Andela, right? Finally taught them how to build software, and then got Facebook and Google and IBM and all these companies to hire them to build
that. Like, there should be this one online space that has all the best stuff and feedback from developers and engineers and people actually building software, you know. I was like, man, this should exist, and I should just go build it, you know. And so I just treated it as a side project at first. Once we built out the first real version of LeanStack at the time, and then he actually stayed on as an advisor, and he was the first investor. So, you know, that was big.
We had a hosting company to back up. Sadly, we had to shut down temporarily, but we're...
The thing we can do is try to mimic an in-person conversation between two people, the two engineers, right? It's like, okay, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Oh, okay, well, we don't have good visibility into how our app is performing in production. Okay, well, here's what we use, right? Like, here's how we solve that problem, right? And you tell them what you use, and then, like, within 30 minutes, it's like, okay, I know that I need to use that now because I trust this person, I trust their decision-making process, and it sounds like a good one to go with, so let me go with that.
I have a passion for creating products that I am interested in and that I'm passionate about. It's tough because at the same time, you have to make a living. And being a startup founder, you don't always have the means to provide for yourself. I didn't have any of that, any serious investors. So after a while, I just to keep myself from not starving, I actually had to break down and actually get a 9-to-5 just so I can provide for myself.
I basically just kept at it because I saw the value of it and I saw the steam, it getting easier.
So you typically wake up around 4:35 because that's when the first calls start. My team all over the world, I try and talk to them as regularly as I can. I'll probably end around 12.
I'm always doing that. I'm working on something right now, you know, that I'm hoping it's going to be very massively successful once I'm ready.
Venture capital in Palo Alto on Sand Hill Road, and you say, hey, I'm trying to raise funds for my African company. And they look at you and they say, buying Ralph Lauren? Are people buying Louis Vuitton? Do they know who Prada is?
Black people in tech. When you see all the big companies, they all have like co-founders that went to school together. And when you grow up with people that aren't in tech, you don't have the luxury of saying, okay, I'm going to start a company and I know exactly who I'm going to
expect in the Valley. And sometimes it's the most ridiculous, mundane, simple things. Punctuality at meetings, the way you approach people, email etiquette, business etiquette. It's the simplest things that have profound consequences within a cross-cultural scenario.
Growing up in Nigeria, as an African in Nigeria, I have natural networks. I have cousins, I have brothers, I have classmates. I like to say I can get to the president in Nigeria, whereas in the US, I can't even get to my mayor. If you are not from here, it's very difficult for you to have a social network. You have to create that social network yourself.
We want to make it...
If you came into Silicon Valley and you're well-trained research